Thank you for tuning in to KBC Channel 1. My name is Mike Megu and you're watching Good Morning Kenya. This is Eye on Politics. And of course, we take a look at politics and everything in between. A lot has happened over the weekend, including the declaration by the courts that the Azimio is the majority party in parliament, a move that was met with a rejoinder from the Speaker of the National Assembly, that is Moses Wetangula, saying that because it also said he holds both the Speaker and the leader of the Ford Kenya Party, which is unconstitutional. And the Speaker said the ruling, quote, was mere ordinary comments in law and that are non-binding and have no practical effect. Those are one of the things that we are going to talk about. And also, yesterday night, the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, said he is going to unveil his political party in May, and saying that keeping the name of the party under wraps is a strategic move for him for now. And also, this week is a defining week, especially in the political landscape within the country, given that the AUC elections are slated to happen on the 15th and 16th of this month. That is the coming weekend, the weekend of this week. Now, that is going to have a political impact on an impact on the politics within the country in terms of alignments and realignments. And also, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has called on Azimio leaders to take up majority leader positions within parliament. That is going to take, we're going to see how that pans out, given that the parliament is supposed to resume tomorrow. That is one of the things we're going to look at. But before we get in today's conversation, I'm going to take you through the front pages of our local dailies. And I'll start with The Nation. Kwaheri. His Highness Aga Khan, this is what is captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Read that story on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation. And Presidential Ruto, this is what is captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. President William Ruto's sharp tongue is causing ripples across the country, from branding critics, quote, stupid, to invoking, quote, evil spirits in his rhetoric is drawing backlash from clergy, lawyers, and political analysts. Once seen as a pious leader, his unfiltered remarks now raise questions about leadership, tolerance, and statesmanship. That story is told on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. From Ethiopia to South Africa, the dark web of JKIA smugglers. Human trafficking syndicate at JKIA has been exposed after 3 Ethiopians were smuggled through the airport with alleged help of airline and immigration officials. A magistrate has questioned a botched investigation, raising concerns about high level of complicity in the illicit trade that exploits vulnerable migrants. That story is told on page 6 and 7 of the Standard newspaper. Let's now move to the Star. Pain of retirees waiting for the elusive pension. State says it's conducting fresh listing to streamline records. That story is told on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. Jitters in Wetangula Party as Azimio said free to have majority slots. National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula Ford Kenya Party reads an attempt to weaken the political outfit ahead of the 2027 general election in its latest awards. The party has said it will be heading to the Court of Appeal to challenge the ruling. That is a story you will read on page 2 of the Star newspaper. And now in studio, I'm joined by Thomas Omar, who is a governance and political analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike.
And also Honorable Mark Dingo, who is a political analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for making time. Now, let's first of all go through the front page of our local dailies. And I'll start with the unpresidential, the Standard, which is saying the headline here splashed is Unpresidential Ruto. President William Ruto's sharp tongue is causing ripples across the country, from branding critics, quote, stupid, to invoking, quote unquote, evil spirits. His rhetoric is drawing backlash from clergy, lawyers, and political analysts. Let me start with you, Omar. What do you think, what do you make of this, especially the things that the president has said in the recent past?
Okay, Mike, this is what I'd like to say. The country is in a serious political crisis. And it's not only a political crisis, but also an economic crisis. You can bear me witness that it's a period of campaigns. The president has already started early campaigns, even before delivering on his mandate that he was elected to do. So I can put it this way, Mike, that we are in a system of mass hysteria and empty political grandiloquence, especially by the bourgeoisie of this country. You see, there are a number of things that the president has to do. He has a manifesto to deliver before starting early campaigns. You saw what he was doing in Northeastern recently. He had actually begun on a high note. He has begun on a high notch. So I can say that he has started positioning himself for the elections of 2027. And as a country and as a people of this country, we need to put our leaders, including the president, to task. As he really delivered on his party manifesto, as he delivered on his mandate, Mike, that is a serious question that we need to ask ourselves. As I mentioned earlier on, Kenyans are really hanging from extremely tight economic ropes. You see, we have heavy taxations, especially by those who have pay slips. You can attest to that. And this is a very serious issue that we really need to have a look at. So even before the president starts to launch projects that there's no money for, or he really needs to have a look at those projects that have already stalled, to brainstorm on those projects, then finish them before even launching other projects. 2027 is around 2.5 years from now. That's a huge period of time. So the people of Kenya need development and not politicking from day to day, Mike.
Okay. Yes. Now, let me say, we're also joined by Riziki Dunstan, who is a lawyer and governance expert. Thank you for making time.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
Very
welcome. Welcome. Mark, what do you think of instances where the president is losing his cool and throwing jibes at his critics?
Oh, thank you, Mike. We are only 2 years after we are done our elections in 2022. And what was being witnessed in 2022 is coming up. And to make it worse, we are getting it from the president himself. I tend to believe the president is acting on, is trying to answer his critics in a way that he's not even sure whether what he's doing is the right thing. For one, I think the president is, the kind of language the president is choosing to answer his critics is the wrong one. Because being elected as a president of the Republic of Kenya, and you stand in a rooftop of a car and you call your electorate stupid, the president is kind of lowering his dignity. And I must say, he's also violating the Chapter 9 of the Constitution, because as a president, you are supposed to unify the country, and you are supposed to talk in a way that is going to bring some peace to the country. But if you find a president rising up and abusing his critics or the electorate, I think we have a big problem. There's also the issue of the timing. We are only 2 years after the elections of 2022, and we find the president has gone into early campaigns. And you wonder why this time? He is there campaigning, and some of the policies and some of the things which he must do, he has not even done them. Look at the situation of the IBC. It has not even been reconstituted. And the president is there campaigning and abusing people. We also have an issue with the way, the kind of directives that the president is giving. One, the one of lifting the ban on vetting those people who are to be registered for IDs in Northeastern. That in itself is going to bring some issues with our security because the former presidents could not be wrong when they brought that issue of vetting those who are supposed to be registered in Northeastern. So I find it a great security risk, and the president should rethink about the issue and let the process follow the right channels, so that we don't have an influx of foreigners who are going to be registered with IDs. Yes. So I think the president needs to tone down on the rhetoric, and he also needs to check his language because he's supposed to lead the people and work on his manifesto as opposed to campaigning and abusing people.
Okay. There's something that Mark Ningo has said about violating Chapter 9 of the Constitution. From your standpoint as a lawyer now, how do you see the president's speech? Does it violate the Chapter 9 of the Constitution?
First of all, a president is a symbol of national unity. Thus, the diction and the choice of words at all times should signify the stature of the office of the presidency. Therefore, at times, I think, from my perspective, is that the protocol persons in charge of the president's diary or the president's itinerary have put him in a situation whereby he is always on a campaign mode. And the aspect of being on a campaign mode has disadvantaged him because at every moment, he's either rebutting or replying to a particular accusation or allegations, thus creating an atmosphere that puts him at loggerheads, more so in attempts to reply to everything. So at one point I'll blame those around him, because leadership sometimes is not about just an individual, but the entire institution. So that when you have a president, and you are a president of the Republic of Kenya or any other republic, you don't need to have your diary back to back, so that you're not put in a situation whereby you're replying to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, because it is unpresidential for that matter. Therefore, it is probably uncalled for, and probably it's time that the president should maybe call his house in order and see that he's presidential to that matter. Two, on the aspect of the ban on presidential on the vetting in Northeastern and other border counties, the High Court had also ruled on the same, requiring that the vetting is unconstitutional, more so for the people born in Kenya and all that. And the High Court's ruling was not specific to a particular region. And probably the aspect of the president going ahead to lift the ban on the vetting, looking at it vis-a-vis the constitutional provisions on the right of citizenship, and Article 13 of the Constitution, it also gives almost similar nature of provisions, in the sense that if a child is born in Kenya below the age of 80 years, then that child will be alluded to be a Kenyan citizen. What ought to really happen to balance between a right and a privilege, for that matter, is that there are other acts that are in place. So the president's action, if you really our country changed. After the 2010 Constitution, Article 10 of the Constitution provided public participation. So I also expect that somebody somewhere will challenge the executive order on the ban on on the vetting of nationals for purpose of getting the ID. Thus, the thinking, the legal persons around the presidency are also failing him, because looking at it, we cannot have just executive orders. Unlike other countries, for us, we have a constitution that is slightly watertight in terms of how do you execute public, such kind of decisions. And public participation is a key anchor under which any law or any order, for that matter, is going to really base on. So having laws or having executive orders without public participation, you are alive to considerable challenge. Two, there are various laws governing immigration issues. There are various laws governing how do you, for example, how does that executive order sit with other laws, vis-a-vis other laws that really govern that. So we are in a situation, probably, I think the legal advisors around the presidency are letting him down and really exposing him to ridicule, because I foresee a situation whereby the executive order will be challenged and it will be upheld vis-a-vis the other laws that probably are being made without executive consultation with the legal provisions of the law.
Okay. Omao, do you think this matter has been politicized? And what was the best approach to this matter?
As our Wakili has said, there are rules and regulations around that subject. And the president, and for this matter, Mike, we need to fault the advisor. That's the principal legal advisor to the government. That's the Attorney General. So it's either the President of the Republic of Kenya has refused or has refused to take in that advice, because this is a serious matter that is likely to cause a lot of jitters and security issue in the country. So I think, as Wakili has said, the president needs to follow the law and also take advice from those constitutionally mandated to advise him as the head of state. Yes.
All right. Now let's look at what is making headlines on the front page of the Star newspaper. Pain of retirees waiting for the elusive pension. State says it's conducting fresh listing to streamline records. Lost billions. In 2019 census exposed at least 40,000 ghost pensioners. What's your take on that, Mark?
Yes. I think pension has always been an issue, and we've witnessed so many times the control of budget raising issues with the high rocketing demand for payment of pensioners. And I think the issue has always been corruption and the lack of having our priorities right. Because if somebody can work for some years and when the time comes for that person to retire, he finds it difficult to get his pension, then the leadership and those who are concerned with the releasing of those funds, I think need to be put into question. Because if you look at the situation at our country, so many things are being done which are not a priority. We have a big chunk of our resources are being spent on some things which are not even useful to our Kenyans. A good example is the kind of cash which is being used by the executive in these campaigns. You'll find at a given time, like last week and the last 2 weeks, he went to Western with all of his cabinet. And every time he's in a rally, you find him with all those cabinet ministers. And the kind of money they are spending is a lot of money. So I have an issue with the kind of expenditures we are getting from the government. And I think if we can put our priorities right, we can solve this issue of paying our pensioners. Because if you fail to plan for your retirees, then you are not planning for the future generation. Because if we have a situation whereby in a certain year we have a certain amount of money which has not been settled for the people who have retired, then we are cutting disaster. Because in future, every year we are having people retiring, and these people are not even cleared of their pensions. So I think it's a big issue, and the government should look at it and find a lasting solution. Is the issue, if it's an issue of corruption, let the government deal with it. Yes. If it's the issue of ghost workers, I think it's something which the government is capable of tackling and doing away with those people who are being paid and they are not even within the payroll. So it's a challenge to the government to look at the situation and find a lasting solution.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Of course, we're going to interrogate this further, but we'll do that after this short break. Don't go too far. This is Good Morning Kenya. Of course, you're watching Good Morning Kenya. This is Eye on Politics. And before we went on a break, we were interrogating the headline on the front page of the Star newspaper. Pain of retirees waiting for the elusive pension. Here, in the last financial year, the Auditor General, Nancy Gathungu, revealed that payments amounting to 350 million were made to 2,950 deceased claimants, with a further 7.3 billion disbursed to pensioners and dependents with questionable identification details. Wakili, how do we address these inefficacies?
First, the aspect or the issue around pension has been the ghost workers. That is one. Two, the budgetary making process is also flawed. It's flawed in the sense that you know, a pension, once the deductions are made, right, whatever government does is that that is also budgeted for. That a particular amount from a particular number of persons are going to have these deductions made. But what happens because of budgetary deficits, those deductions are not remitted because lack of, you know, it is easier to budget for it because it's not there. It's not that when your pension is due, the amount of money is already also remitted to Treasury. So I think if we dealt with issues the other way around, apart from now just blaming the aspect of the misadministration or maladministration with the management of pension, I think realistically is also a budgetary deficit. And there's been an easier, quicker route for government to be able to run, because you are sure that you're going to have this population staying for these persons staying maybe for 30 years or 20 years in service. Therefore, you can budget for it in terms of the physical planning, but you don't have the money yet. So the best approach will be that budget for what you have. You know, if we live within our means, then it means that we budget for what we have, and then, you know, we're able, by the time this person retires, we're able to have the monies. Two, the aspect of the administration. All pension schemes are corruption cartels. So one thing, if we're able to handle the pension schemes and bring order and sobriety in terms of the management and administration of their funds, it will be a game changer, because you'll be clear from the onset that these monies are there, these people have done their jobs, and by the time they're retiring, they have their money. So that is a two-pronged approach. Deal with it from the budgetary aspect, have the clarity of purpose and sincerity that when these people are leaving service, they have their monies ready. The other aspect is just clear the mess. And probably also give credit to government that they also come up with the superannuation schemes within Treasury. These schemes probably will be a game changer in terms of how best to invest these monies, because the perception is that these monies are kept somewhere.
And some are unclaimed.
Some are unclaimed, but the monies are not really somewhere. You know, they're not kept in a particular place. Much of the money is invested elsewhere. So that's why you have other investment schemes, you have NSSF, you have other aspects that are the CPF fund and all that. So to really deal with it is create schemes that are well managed, have clear-cut structures, but also handle the entire budgetary process. Handle it in the sense that you don't plan for what you don't have, and only plan with what you have. And when you talk about a particular deductions, at least be clear that the deductions are going to be made and are going to be well managed.
All right. Now, what about automating the process, the pension process of Mao? Does that eliminate the aspect, the problem of ghost workers and enhance tracking the retirees?
You see, Mike, now the challenge that we have is not only automating, is the elephant in the room is corruption. And as a country, I don't really think whether we have sufficient rules and regulations. We don't have a sufficient legal framework to address the question of corruption. Because, you know, those, the public officers or the officers who are entrusted with some of these funds, the moment they go to those offices, they just look at them as a conduit to steal the public resources. So I really think that we need to put in place proper legal mechanisms to address the question of corruption in this country. Because the moment someone steals public funds and is taken to court, you realize that they have stolen too much to the fact that they have enough to bribe their way out. So the main challenge that we have as a country is insufficient or no legal framework to address the question of corruption in this country.
Let's graduate this conversation. That is what is captured on our front pages of our local dailies. I want us to graduate this conversation to another matter. Now, last week, the High Court ruled that Azimio is the majority in the House. And given that tomorrow the National Assembly is resuming business, Mark, how do you see that affecting government agenda within the House?
Yes, the High Court of Kenya gave a ruling on or the majority, who is supposed to be majority in the National Assembly. I think it has been an issue of when, because looking at the figures and the elections of 2022, you'll find that Azimio had more MPs. And what happened is most of those MPs who were elected on small parties were incorporated in the Kenya Kwanza government, thereby reducing the number of the Azimio elected MPs. And this was a case of when, because when the Speaker of the National Assembly ruled in favor of Kenya Kwanza government and Azimio went to court, I think it was clear that the court was going to rule in favor of Azimio. And coming back to the ruling, we are expecting to have some realignments, some rearrangements within the National Assembly, only if the Kenya Kwanza government or the Speaker of the National Assembly is not going to appeal on the ruling. Because if he goes to court and appeals the ruling, I think he probably is going to ask for a stay order, so which are going to give them some time to wait so that the court can rule. But I think currently what is supposed to happen is the Kenya Kwanza government should relinquish the majority, the majority leadership to the Azimio. That means Junaid Mohammed is supposed to take up the majority leadership, and Ichungwa is supposed to take the minority. But that one is also going to be, we are going to also to wait and see, because looking at the current situation whereby we have a broad-based government, we don't know the reaction of ODM, because already we have one part of ODM which is in government, another part of ODM which is in the opposition. So the part which is those who are within the government might decide to say, we are already in government, so we are still the majority. So it's a question of wait and see. And I suspect the Kenya Kwanza government is not going to let it go easy because they want to have that majority so that they can continue to dominate the bills and everything in the National Assembly.
All right. Wakili, you know, even Kalonzo Musyoka, who is a Wiper Party leader, has urged Azimio MPs within the House to take up the majority seats in the House. Is there going to be a showdown tomorrow in Parliament?
It's easier said than done. One is that that being a decision of the High Court is subject to appeal. The aspect sometimes, there is a doctrine called the political question doctrine in terms of interpreting where in cases where there is a dispute between the judiciary and the parliament and executive, parliament and various aspects. Yeah. In the political question doctrine dictates that political disputes are first sorted out politically before you seek a judicial interpretation. So I presume that will be a good argument legally before the Court of Appeal in terms of what constitutes a political question when there is a dispute over a political issue. That is, for example, if you argued that at the time of the filing of the matter that was filed before the High Court, was UDM led by Roba still a member of the Azimio coalition? And legally, that membership, had they withdrawn from Azimio coalition legally from the registrar? And the answer is that it's yes. That being the case, assuming the petition filed before the High Court was amended, because the petition as filed before the High Court is as per the coalition agreement. So assuming the coalition filed before the High Court was amended for that matter, then you get that case that matter will be ruled differently. So I presume that it might not be very easy for Kenya Kwanza to relinquish the majority leadership because of either technicalities and also because of the political question doctrine. But going further, the High Court also made a number of decisions probably on the viability of the Speaker to hold public office and equally hold a political office. Probably that will be the game changer, because as you look at it, assuming politically that Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, was, he resigned or he stepped aside from his position as the party leader of ANC. And we have here a Speaker of the National Assembly who is a state officer who is holding public office and also leading parliament where debates are going on. They're supposed to be impartial. By that nature, or by virtue of that, is not impartial even in the floor of the House. Yeah. Probably that would be the big debate, because I presume that this, that holds water, and it is, it is appealing to the masses, and logically it makes a lot of sense. So I think when Parliament opens tomorrow, the major issue will be that should a Speaker continue holding the position of a Speaker as he still holds the position of the party leader of Ford Kenya, or alternatively, should he step aside from the party leadership and remain as a Speaker? But the aspect of these other leadership positions, I think they will remain.
Actually, in a rejoinder, still on you, Wakili, Wetangula termed the ruling as mere ordinary comments, that is, put mere ordinary comments in law that are non-binding and have no practical effect. Also indicated that at no point did the courts order that he vacates his position as Speaker or cease being the Ford Kenya party leader. So just terming the ruling as mere ordinary comments in
the decision of the court cannot be mere ordinary comment. No, this was a judgment by you know, by a bench of 3.
Yes.
You get? So by virtue of that, the interpretation of a judgment cannot be a mere comment. That is, for him, he is playing to the gallery. But I'm sure he, being also as an advocate of the High Court, he knows the truth. So the aspect of Article 6, Chapter 6 of the Constitution on issues of leadership and, you know, and integrity, you cannot hold a public office at the same time hold a political office. I think it is, he knows it and probably is just playing the gallery. But I also presume that Kenya Kwanza has been putting pressure on him to resign as a political, as a Ford Kenya party leader. And I presume that this will be the best moment for the Kenya Kwanza administration to achieve that, because there has been a push for the formation of a bigger brigade under UDA.
Yes.
So this is the best time for UDA to achieve that, because they'll ask him either to step aside as a Ford Kenya party leader or to step aside as a speaker. And I think he'll choose stepping aside as a Ford Kenya party leader. But he cannot say that they were just mere comments, because the Parliament was party to that case, and they gave arguments in favor of him retaining the 2 positions.
Yes.
So you cannot say that it's it is playing the fool's paradise.
You know, soon after the ruling was delivered, the National Assembly sought a stay orders which were declined by the courts. Omao, I'll throw the same question to you. How do you see this affecting government business?
You see, Mike, the greatest challenge that we have as a country is that those who are supposed to protect the Constitution are the one mutilating it. Masika Moses Wetangula, from my own understanding, is actually a law-abiding citizen who at some point reported his wife to a police station for having been for having inflicted serious injuries on his part. So it implies that this is a law-abiding citizen who understands the Constitution. And by virtue of the point that he is the Speaker of the National Assembly, he is completely excluded from holding the portfolio or the party position. If we have a look at Section 12 of the Political Parties Act, and also Section 23 and 24 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, it crystal clearly indicates that if you are a national figure or if you are a public servant, you are not supposed to hold a party position. So, being a lawyer by excellence, Moses Masika Wetangula understands that he is not supposed to be a Speaker of the National Assembly and also hold the position of party leader, that is of Ford Kenya. So, Mike, what I can comment about that is that the elections of the AUC chairmanship on Saturday, as you mentioned, the outcome of that election will now shape the political events in this country going forward. Because if Raila Amolo Odinga doesn't succeed, then most probably he'll come back and pull his troops to his side, and most probably they'll rightfully take what belongs to them as a mere coalition, including impeaching the Speaker of the National Assembly. Yes.
Now, you know, the UDA has... the court judgment does not alter the fact that UDA has superior membership in the House, but still assigned Azimio as the majority party in the House. And there's also some parties within Azimio that ditched Azimio and went to opposition during because of the dalliance of ODM's party with the government. Will that have any serious political ramifications?
Yes, for UDA to have enough numbers, as I've said earlier, we had some political parties which initially went to elections in coalition with Azimio, and later, after elections, they jumped ship and formed a coalition with UDA. I think this one is also going to have some implications if at all the court ruling is going to be adhered to. Because for one, those who went to UDA would want to continue working with UDA government, and that in itself is going to give the numbers. The Azimio is claiming to have the majority, some shaky grounds to claim their numbers. But I think if they are going to put an appeal and they are going to be given some stay orders, this one will give the UDA some more time to try to look for numbers, because I'd said I don't think Kenya Kwanza government is going to relinquish the majority status. That simple, because they would want to continue to dominate the National Assembly. Then there is also the issue of the ruling. The ruling was done by the High Court, so I can see the case dragging to the Supreme Court, and this also is going to delay maybe for a year, and if it goes to the Supreme Court, that means it could even take up to next year, which will be too close to the elections of 2027. So all in all, I think the ruling is is good for Azimio, but how they are going to reclaim it, I think that's where the issue is. Then I think I need also to say about the Speaker of the National Assembly. The easier way for Wetangula, I'm very sure, is going to relinquish the Fort Kenya chairmanship. Because if you look at the two seats, you cannot be a leader of a political party and at the same time you are a state officer.
Actually, it was termed unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional. And it's true, the court did not declare him unfit to hold that office. It only gave a ruling. So it's upon him to decide which seat is going to relinquish. And the easier one, I think, is the leadership for the Fort Kenya party. Yes. And I think also there are some other implications going forward. Because listening to Orengo, who is an ODM member, 2 days, I think he said this is the time for the Azimio to take their position in the National Assembly. And that tells you that the Azimio, not the Azimio really, the UDA or the Kenya Kwanza government are in shaky grounds, because the timing also is also going to have some issues, because if you look at this week, we are going to have the elections of the AU chair, and if at all the party leader of ODM is not going to get the position of the AU chair, I'm very sure when he comes back, he would want to reclaim his position, and he would want to have his MPs as a majority in the National Assembly. So in both situations, I think we are going to have an interesting time this week and the coming days.
Indeed. And Wakili, does this ruling, or say for instance, Kenya Kwanza relinquishes these seats in the House, does that reinvigorate the opposition in Parliament?
In Parliament, I think with the broad-based government as it is, the minority leadership, which is now the official opposition in terms of the legal structures and the legal framework, I find it still dead, and it's dead as a dog, and you cannot even resuscitate it, because the opposition is not a position. The opposition is the willingness to hold government to account. So you're looking at it from a political and legal, with the legal lenses, whether we have changes as they may be declared by the court, still with the thinking that we have a broad-based government, then even on the floor of the House, the minority leadership will not hold the majority leadership to account either way. So, looking at it, to have an effective opposition, basically it starts with the leadership. And the leadership is Raila and the other opposition leaders coming together and really doing whatever they're supposed to be done. Leadership, opposition leadership is not about an individual. It's about the it is about the spirit behind it. If the spirit behind it is that there is no opposition, two, we have a mongrel kind of government, in the sense that we have members of the opposition parties, part of the executive. I know that is the imbroglio within the ODM and the ODM party. So you don't expect much. Don't expect much from the ruling, whether it is whoever relinquishes. But as my colleagues have alluded to, much will be determined whether Raila wins the AAU seat or loses. But I think whether he wins or loses, we are going to see an emergence of a new crop of leaders within the opposition, either to fill up the gap that has been probably left, or the alternative to Raila will come back and also give it the necessary oomph towards having the country held accountable. But you are seeing new leaders, the likes of Sifuna, Babu Owino. These are guys who are also probably trying to make a political statement in terms of just being leaders of the opposition. And that, either way, you will see a new crop of persons who will hold government to account whether Raila wins or loses. So we are in a moment that we are going to see new things. We're going to see new things, new approaches to issues. We're going to see more active leaders. Going to see new thinking in terms of how the opposition ought to be done, but not on the people holding those oppositions, those positions, whether it is minority or majority. Yes. And most likely to remain, because I don't see the goodwill. I don't see the goodwill to obey the court order, assuming even if it went up the Supreme Court. But also looking at the timings, the Court of Appeal will take maybe a year or so. If you go to the Supreme Court, it's another maybe 1 year or so, and we'll already be in 2027, and it might not be forthcoming. So it's a longer route. The best route is have other players within the opposition come up and hold government to account.
Omar, do you see Kenya Kwanza relinquishing this seat?
I think, Mike, there will be serious political implications if it relinquishes those seats. Because even the president himself, from where he'll be sitting at the house on the hill, he won't be sitting there comfortably knowing that he doesn't have numbers in both houses. So what I think he'll most probably do, he'll have to strategize so that these cases drag on in the courts as he buys time going to the 2027 elections. Because he will not be having those numbers within the National Assembly and also Senate. Most probably the government agenda will not sail through the National Assembly and also the Senate. So what I think they likely do is to buy time, go to the courts, and try to drag these cases until 2026 and also 2027. So from where I sit, I can comfortably say without any fear of contradiction that the Kenya Kwanza will not relinquish these portfolioos. Yes.
Indeed. And that is a matter that we'll be following and inform you accordingly. We take a short break. When we come back, we continue with the conversation on Eye on Politics, and we look at the AUC elections that are slated for Saturday. Stay with us. Thank you for tuning to this live broadcast. You're watching Eye on Politics here on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Megwe. Thomas Omao is a political and governance expert. Mark Dingo is a political analyst. And Riziki Dunstan is a lawyer and governance expert. Now we shift gears and talk about matters AUC. Now Raila's date with destiny is nigh, and on Saturday, the AUC elections are happening. And Raila is contending for that AUC chairmanship with Djibouti, candidate from Madagascar. Now, let me start with you, Akili. what are Raila's chances in this election, given that there are some indications that 28 states within Africa have endorsed his candidacy?
One is that as a country, we wish Raila the best and we wish him the, well. Two is that there are various dynamics within the voting structures of, or the voting systems of the AU. And to win the AU seat, you need 2/3 of the voting states. And the voting states are 49. I think 3 or 4 are not eligible to vote. That being the case, we have 2 scenarios. We have the, first of all, we have the DRC crisis, that our president, who is also one of his potential voters, to me made probably a blunder, a diplomatic blunder, in the sense that the Francophone nations within Africa have been revolting against the perceived micromanagement by France. So the time the president just said that he has called France, or he has received a call from Macron over the DRC crisis, it changed many things in my thinking. The other aspect is the Islamic states within Africa also have their own organization. And these Islamic states are a good number. Majority of them are relatively small nations, but they have similar votes to the other big nations. So looking at the combination of the Islamic states and the Francophones within the region, within the Africa, my numbers don't give me the real figure that he might win. My numbers are not adding up. 2, the number of probably SADC, if you look at SADC nations, do we really have support of the SADC nations in terms of how they're going to vote? And I'll say that because you've seen a number of their candidates, a number of their presidents really warming up to the Djiboutian candidates. And they have brought in the aspect of age, the aspect of being able to speak other languages as factors for election. So if going 5 years behind, we had Amina Mohammed as a candidate. She was everything perfect, but on the voting day, the real voting day, is when we lost. So I'm not seeing a possible win because of the Francophones and the Islamic states. There, we're also going to have a number of revolts, more so even from the region, because I will want to watch keenly how Rwanda will vote, because Rwanda has felt probably betrayed by Kenya. I also want to watch keenly how, for example, Tanzania will vote. I'll want to watch keenly how South Africa will vote, because we've made a number, even DRC.
Yes.
DRC as a country. We've seen the president of DRC revolting against even attending a meeting called by our president. So those repercussions are extremely huge. The Francophones are 26. So I saw the secretariat saying they have 28 votes. So I'm wondering, it might be very unrealistic, but the Francophones are already 26. So looking at that, add the Francophones that are not Arab states.
Yes.
About 13. So we are. It's good to be hopeful, but myself, I'm very pessimistic.
Okay. Omao, the dynamics that Wakili has talked about, do you see them playing out on Saturday?
You see, Mike, I think I'll be a serious victim of eroded morals if I go without saying that Raila Odinga, our candidate, is a paragon of moral and intellectual virtue, not only in this country, but also on a global scale. But now, when we have a look at the geopolitics of the African Union, you realize that it will not be Raila Odinga as a person who will be put on the weighing scale, but rather Kenya as a country will be judged. Number one, Mike, kindly, if you allow me to say it carelessly, Kenya as a country has we have mishandled our foreign policy, especially towards other African countries. For example, Mike, you can attest with me the fact that Kenya doesn't have a substantive ambassador to Kinshasa. Shema Amada, Colonel Shema Amanda was appointed by William Ruto in 2023 to be the ambassador from Nairobi to Kinshasa. But to date, he has not presented his documents to Kinshasa. The reason is that if you can remember, when William Ruto was the vice president, he made some vitriolic statements that the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo, they are people who wear trousers above their waist. You see, that's a serious, that's a statement that have far-reaching implications. As Wakili said, Felix Etienne Tshisekedi, the president of DRC, snapped a meeting called by William Ruto, but attended one called by SADC. And you can remember that SADC has 29 member states. There is a serious crisis between South Africa, Rwanda, and also Uganda. And SADC has made its position crystal clear on this matter. And they have said that they are going to support the candidate from Djibouti. And as a political scientist and also a scholar of international relations, I'm a regular consumer of statistics and data, Mike. You see, statistics have indicated that 3 out of 4 former AUC chairpersons have come from Francophone countries. Talk of Mahama, the current chairperson. Talk of the other fellow from Guinea. So what is likely going to change this time round? And the Francophone countries, they have that particular unit of purpose. These are people who vote in a particular direction, Mike. You see, like for example, French, during the colonial times, French actually told its its colonies that they need to be united. And that's why people like Felix Afabwanyi was a member of parliament in a French parliament. So according to the current statistics, I see our candidate is going to have an uphill task. That is number one, Mike. And number two, as I said, Kenya, we have a serious challenge about dealing with our foreign policy issues. And this blame, I squarely put it on the President of the Republic of Kenya, on the manner in which he handles these issues. In 2023, the President invited Colonel Nangaa. Colonel Nangaa is the leader of the Congo River Alliance, and now the leader of M23, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So this is a gentleman who wants to depose the government in Kinshasa. So from where you sit, Mike, you have a president who is supporting a rebel leader who wants to overthrow a sitting government. So you can just imagine how that president, how Felix Tshisekedi will be voting. So from where I sit, I can comfortably say that in as much as we love Raila Odinga, it's not him who will be judged, but Kenya as a country. Number three, before you take away the mic, you can attest the fact that Nairobi has been seen as a ground for international abductions. Kizza Besigye was recently abducted in Nairobi, and he's a serious opposition figurehead in this continent. And now we have opposition leaders who are now presidents. Talk of President Bassirou Faye from Senegal, who came from prison to be president. Talk about Duma Boko Gideon from Botswana, who came from prison to be president. how will these opposition figureheads, who are now presidents, going to judge Kenya as a country? Are they going to judge it as a dictatorial state? So my position is that in as much as we love Raila Odinga, he'll have a serious uphill task.
Okay, all right. Be that as it may, do you agree, Mark, with what Omao is saying, that it's not Raila who will be judged by Kenya as a country? And do you see East African voting as a bloc?
Yes, I agree with you. It's not Raila who is going to be judged by the outcome of the elections, because Raila, being a candidate of Kenya and being supported by the government, it will be the outcome will be for the Kenya government and the Kenya people. The politics, the geopolitics of the AU seat at the moment are a bit complicated, looking at the past elections. I think everyone in Kenya or in government would want Raila to win, and for sure, a win for Raila would be good for the country, considering the benefits which come with it in terms of development. But if you look at the campaign, the government has put a lot of effort in doing that shuttle campaign to different countries. And that shows the kind of expectation the government has. But if you look at the candidates, that is the Raila and the Djibouti candidate, I think for me, I would say at the moment it's 50-50. You cannot, at the moment, say there is one who has a clear win, because there are two competing factors here. And one being the Anglophone countries who would want to dominate, because they have dominated in the past elections, and they would want to have their candidate win against Raila. And also, there are also some other challenges with our candidate. One, this is a candidate from Kenya, and of recent, Kenya has not been in good news in terms of governance and human rights, because what has happened in terms of abductions, I'm sure it's going to have some effects on the kind of support Raila is going to get, because we have countries in Africa who don't even support, or who don't even feel our country is moving in the right direction. And I think they will want to vote against our candidate. The other issue has been raised about our international relations. Of recent, I think our president, William Ruto, has made some blunders which might even cost the Raila the elections, one being the DRC issue. If going by what has happened in the recent days, I think definitely DRC is going to vote against our candidate. There is also the issue of the SADC, which has been growing hot and cold concerning our candidate, and we are not even sure whether they are going to stand firm and support our candidate. So I think that there are quite a number of challenges, and the other one also, you talked of the East African countries, and if we are going to go by the history, I think we are sitting on a unsure seat, because the last time we had Amina Mohamed, Uganda and Rwanda voted against our candidate. But I think this time around, with the kind of relationship we've seen the two countries having with Kenya, they might vote for our candidate, Raila Omolo. Then I think there is also another issue of the Kenyans, a bigger percentage of Kenyans, that is the constituency of the Gen Zs, have have campaigned, though in the social media, against our candidate. And although they are not going to be voters in that election, they have tried to portray Raila as a betrayer to their cause, and that can also sway some presidents to vote against Raila. So I think, all in all, we expect some win for Raila, but I think there are going to be challenges. But what we can only pray is for him to win, because it will be good for our country. Having a chairman from Kenya,
yes,
for the first time, I think we are going to make some history, and I'm sure he is capable of delivering the promises. So we need also to pray for him as a country and
yes,
as a people from this part of the world.
Wakili, do you agree that matters to do with governance and issues on human rights will play out or will play a role in determining if Raila gets this or not?
Totally, because the major issues that are now affecting Africa as a whole, as a continent, relate to how presidents really manage and govern their people. We're also facing a number of revolts across Africa. We're facing a number of uprisings. So how you handle the masses really has a replica effect to how the entire campaigns and the entire voting will be done. Africa has also been crying for the African Court of Justice. We've been saying that we don't want to go to the ICC anymore. So a candidate who would not uphold the rule of law, will not respect human rights, will not respect, the place of, the fair administration of justice, will not be a good candidate. And that is the Waterloo that Raila is facing. Because as an individual, he has been seen as a person who is pro-democracy, pro-human rights all along. But in the last couple of years, or the last 2 years, this has been turned upside down because of a number of the abductions and not probably not responding to those allegations in the right way. So I think the number of, look at the new presidents across the region, or across Africa, are individuals who really respect the rule of law, are individuals who are coming up, who are getting into office on their platform of respect of the rule of law, respect of human rights. So any government that does not respect the rule of law and human rights really has a negative perception. So Raila's candidature is largely affected by Kenya as a country, not by him. He has stood out as a paragon of democracy and rule and human rights. But our country has, not been so good in terms of respecting the same. The other aspect that we also need to look at is the aspect of age. There are a number of countries in terms of their leadership have not been, who have been pro-youthful or pro-young, slightly younger age, are not very comfortable with Raila's candidature because they're not so sure that he will be able to deliver with the same energy, with the same strength that probably the Djiboutian will do. The other aspect is communication. We've seen the Djiboutian candidates speaking in French, speaking in Arabic, speaking in Spanish, speaking in Portuguese. That is the kind of candidate that people are looking at, or the other person are looking at, because he's able to, going to the African to the African space, and when you go to the Francophones, be able to speak French. When you go to the Anglophones, be able to speak English. When you go to Mozambique, he's able to speak Portuguese, and that is the kind of dynamic. So the packaging of the competitor is, there are a number of factors that really favor him. Age favors him, language favors him. Then Djibouti is a very strategic country. As much as Kenya is equally strategic, Djibouti is literally at the Horn of Africa. Being at the Horn of Africa, you'll see the US. US has strategic interests, and it is a military, in terms of the naval the naval strategic interest. You have both French, US, China, all in Djibouti. So I want to see how these countries also will want to shape their Djiboutian interests vis-a-vis the Kenyan interest. And Kenya, as we've alluded earlier on, what is our, our foreign policy? Are we pro-East or are we pro-West? Because we've been somewhere in between. So will that also shape in terms of, are we relating well with China at the expense of the European countries? Are we relating well with European countries at the expense of China and Russia? And I'll want to see, I think Russia and China will also have an influence in terms of other countries who they are pro Kenya or Djibouti will vote.
Okay.
And I am sure that for strategic interests and our relationship as it has been in the recent past, they will want to tilt in favor of a Djiboutian candidate.
Okay, all right. Omao, how do you see the Congo crisis affecting Raila's candidature, and how Kenya has handled that matter so far?
I think, Mike, as I said earlier, the greatest challenge that we have as a country is that we have a president who believes who just believes in himself. He thinks that he knows everything, including subjects that require expert knowledge. For example, Mike, I told you that we have an ambassador who has not submitted his credentials to Kinshasa. That is Colonel Shem Adama. He was appointed in 2023. And that is number one. Number two, I mentioned about a gentleman called Colonel Nangaa, who is the leader of M23, that is fighting so hard to overthrow the government in Kinshasa. So when Colonel Nangaa was in Nairobi last year, Felix Tshisekedi wanted the Kenyan government to hand him over to Kinshasa for extradition. But Kenya could not do that because of a number of reasons. So I think we have a president who has failed to just give directions to experts to handle these issues. And this is why I feel that we miss people like Ambassador Macharia Kamau, the previous PS for Foreign Affairs, the Uhuru regime. So people like Korir Singwei, allow me to mention his name, I've really not seen his impact, especially at a time when we need his services. So Kenya's position, Kenya's strategic position, as you are aware, William Ruto is the president of the East African Community. And I'm really not convinced beyond a parallel venture that he has put the East African basket in order. Because if you have a look at Congo herself is a member of EAC. And if you have a look at the display of foreign policy towards Congo and also Rwanda, it begs a lot of questions. So I really think that, number one, Congo has expressed herself that it will vote against our candidate, and that's because of our foreign policy approach. Number two, I think that countries like Rwanda, I think William Ruto has been seen as pro-Rwanda and also Uganda. And Rwanda and Uganda are countries that have strategic interests in Congo. These are countries that have been exploiting the Congo minerals. So I think that we really need to step up our game before it's too late. But I think it's already late, Mike.
All right. And of course, the elections will be happening on Saturday, and it will be a secret ballot. And it will be done until one of the candidates attains a 2/3 majority vote. Of course, we'll keep tabs on those happenings, and rest assured, KBC will be bringing you a coverage of that. Gentlemen, I want to give you each 30 seconds to give your submissions, and I will start with you, Honorable Makdigo.
Mine to wish the Right Honorable Raila Omolo a win. If he wins, he continues with his his development agenda and delivering his promises, and also a win would be good for him, at least as a consolation for having lost elections for the presidency in Kenya. So if he loses, he comes back and continues with this work of the opposition.
Okay. Omar.
Okay, from my side, Mike, I think I'll be praying that Raila loses, because we need him more than he is needed at the African Union. So going forward, I'm praying for a unit of purpose. I'm praying for our country. I'm praying for our president, so that he is seen as a unifying factor and not a dividing factor among Kenyans.
All right.
So all I pray for is the unit of purpose for our country.
All right. Ogili.
Mine is probably a slightly different approach, is that we need a more unified East Africa, one. Therefore, the voting should not divide us as a region, because we're also facing other crises. So Raila's, I wish him the very best. Lastly is the aspect that probably we need to remind Kenyans that the fiscal policy or the budgetary making process has begun, and it's time probably to really pay close attention to it, because last year we faced a crisis because of the budget making process. Let us try to sort it out right now, so that we don't make noise later on. Thank you.
Yes. Gentlemen, your time is very much appreciated, and thank you for making time. That is Wakili Riziki Dunstan, who is a lawyer and governance expert, Omar Thomas, who is a governance and political analyst, and Mark Dingo, who is a political analyst, joining us here on Good Morning Kenya to talk about politics and everything in between. This is where we end this conversation. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Mike Migwi. Good Morning Kenya continues shortly. Don't go too far.